Hey everyone, my name is Dante and welcome back to Story Hub, your hub for the best stories on Reddit. It's been 35 years and I still regret leaving. I don't know why I'm posting this, but I have to get this off my chest. I, male 60, got married young at 18. I married my high school sweetheart. She was smart, funny, kind, and the kind of person who could capture a room. Very extroverted. I'm incredibly introverted, but we were a good match. By the time we were 25, we had 2 small children and I was happy with how my life was. Then my wife got a new job and she was excelling, getting promotions, working later. I think you see where this is going. You are wrong, by the way. I cheated on her. Whilst she was out working late to make money to support our children, I was building up a resentment towards her. She wasn't home to make dinner and I never bothered to learn to cook. Washing would pile up for a few days because I didn't do it, and I was doing the school run because she was at work. But I never voiced how I felt, and every day my beautiful wife would come home I would put a front on and pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I know if I had told her how I felt she would have listened, but I didn't. I met a woman at a work thing and we spoke over the phone constantly for a few weeks. Things turned inappropriate quickly and I didn't stop. I wrote my wife a birthday card telling her how much I loved her, and she was an amazing person, then 2 weeks later walked out on her. And the worst part was she never screamed at me or yelled. She just stood there and watched me take my things whilst my children were in the other room completely oblivious to what was going on. She just stood there silently crying. I broke the best person in my life. She ended up losing her job because she couldn't manage the school run or extra child arrangements. So my alimony payments had to go up and I resented her for that. Looking back on it now, how selfish could I be? The women who I betrayed and were now single-handedly raising my children needed more money to care for them. I saw them every other side, but that was it. My AP and I fizzled almost immediately. She didn't want something with me, and she really didn't want something with me when I was almost broke from paying alimony. My wife was and still is the strongest person I know. She never let me know how much I hurt her, but I heard her crying herself to sleep every night. I had to stay over for something with the kids. I spent years resenting my wife for stealing my money when in reality I knew it was my fault, and I still loved her but was too proud to say. And even though I left, it was her who eventually filed for divorce because every time she asked me if I had gotten a lawyer I would say I'm not ready. Eventually she filed because she said it was too painful. I said some really awful things to her when I was angry, like I didn't love you for a long time. I stayed for the children and every time she just said nothing back. I'll never forgive myself for that. She wanted to try to make it work. She fought for me every day for months and I wasn't interested. She loved me even when I hated her. Then she met Mark. He was older, wiser, and he loved her the way I should have loved her. He was and is a good man to her and my children. Watching someone else love the person you were supposed to love forever is quite possibly the worst thing I've ever had to do. I blurted out I love you to her 2 weeks before her wedding and she looked at me and said, then you should have fought for me, because I would have loved you forever if you'd let me. On the day of her wedding I sat outside the church in my car, telling myself I would object the wedding, but I didn't. That was 30 years ago, and seeing that written in front of me now is just as painful as hearing it all those years ago. Having to watch her with him all these years has been my punishment, and I've had the odd relationship but nothing serious. I will never forgive myself for what I did. It should have been our 42nd wedding anniversary today. I don't think anyone survived infidelity entirely. I think you learn to live with it. Not an idiot. I wanted to say that maybe you should tell her these things, but don't. She has moved on and found love. Don't disturb her happiness. I'm sure it took her a long time to get there. I was the wife of 23 years, 1 kid after 19 years together. We had a good marriage, life. We're good to each other. It was a good marriage. He left me at 41 with a 4-year-old child. I wonder every day what I did to deserve him sleeping with his coworker and leaving us for her. The woman he showed true love, affection to. The woman that gave up her career to stay home with a child. Now, I am a 45-year-old single mom with an 8-year-old child. With an ex-husband that hates me. He was my best friend because of the decisions he made. He gave me our home and I get alimony every month. He can't stand me because of the money he lost. I don't think he realizes what he really lost. I can't stand him because I was never given a chance to fight for my 23-year relationship. I am hopeful for love, but I only get every other weekend to date. Most people don't like that. Only one person has met my child in 4 years. My ex had a new instant family and has spent every night with his girlfriend. I'm alone and probably will be for the rest of my life because of the boundaries I set in my dating life. I protect my and my child's life for a reason. Most men don't have the patience to see where we are in 3 months with every other weekend. I sacrifice my personal life a lot, but I know it's worth it. I'm sure your ex-wife suffered and sacrificed so much. I hope that she found true happiness. Not an idiot. Bro, that had to be hard to write out. But by God it was powerful to read. And hindsight is always 20/20. But sharing this could very well knock some sense into the people who read it. I can kind of identify with you and your ex in the situation. It is a female canine when one partner is sacrificing and striving to make the future bright for you both, and the kids. And it is hard on the person that is holding down the fort. Both lose out on getting quality time together, and it hurts. You just wish people would use loyalty and patience in those situations. But so often something or someone gets in the way. Major props again for writing and sharing. It takes a man to admit his faults and mistakes. Your honesty with yourself and us is appreciated. Now for the next story. 5 years ago, right after my divorce, I met this woman at a concert. She was a bit younger than me, but we hit it off and she wound up going to a bar with me and my friends after that show ended. It was a fun night and we exchanged numbers. At that time, I wasn't really using any social media except FB, and that was just to keep up with my kids' school and activities. So, we never became friends, we just text each other. At first the texts were casual, a little flirty every once in a while, but nothing to suggest there was any interest in anything sexual. Turns out she only lived 20 minutes from me, but we never met up or saw each other. After a couple weeks of texting we figured out we were both going to be at the same concert again. But this time in another city. It was a guy weekend for me and a girl weekend for her. So, she and her friends met me and my friends before the concert. We did a little bar hopping together. Her and her friends were younger than me and my friends, and I were the only single ones amongst my friends. My friends and I, noticed none of these girls were wearing wedding rings. So, we assumed they were all not married. They were all younger than us and there didn't seem to be much interest outside of being friends. That was fine. At the time I wasn't interested in a relationship anyway. After going to a couple bars, we went to the concert. Her and her friends had floor tickets and me and my friends had seats. I thought that was the end of it for that night. After the concert me and my friends went to a bar and then to our hotels. Right after I got to my room this woman texted me and asked if I wanted to come have some more drinks with her. She was at a place close to my hotel, so sure, I agreed. I went back out expecting to see her and her friends, but it was just her. I don't even think I finished my drink by the time we were heading back to my hotel. It was awesome. When we got back home, she started coming over to my house during the day. I have a flexible job and most days work from my house. She travels around the area for her job, so she had time to come over during the day. She'd come over after my kids went to school and left before they got home. Some days she was at my house almost the whole time my kids were at school. Even if it wasn't my time with the kids, she was there during the same time. Never at night and never during the weekends. It was just a FWB type relationship. That was perfect for me. I was involved with my kids, even coaching 2 of their teams, so it never interfered with my time with them or my friends. Also, I wasn't looking for a relationship and definitely didn't want a relationship with someone that young that may want kids. I'm done having kids. I was upfront with her about how I felt, and she was fine with it. She said she wasn't looking for a relationship either. This went on for almost a year. Eventually I met someone, my now wife, and broke it off with her. She was fine with that too. We never text each other again. A year after I met my wife we got married. 2 years ago, I met this woman again at a neighborhood gathering. My wife and I were introduced to her and her husband by a friend of mine. They had recently bought the house right next to his. When we first saw each other, it wasn't awkward or anything. We just smiled and said hi. I told my wife about our past when we got home that night. My wife is very understanding. We both accept that we both have had past relationships. No big deal. Her husband turns out to be a pretty cool guy. He starts hanging out with my group of guy friends and we become friends too. This year he joined one of my fantasy football leagues. So, he friends me on FB. After I became friends with him, he became friends with my wife. My wife takes a look at his profile and asks how long ago I was FWB with his wife. It was 5 years ago. She showed me a recent post that said he and his wife have been married for 8 years. Not an idiot. Damn, are you going to tell him? I mean, if you were him, wouldn't you want to know? Also, I am so glad that it went in a different direction. I thought you meant you cheated like you did not, you were the AP. Not an idiot. This is one of those things that if it's floating around a newly formed close-knit group of friends it will probably come out sooner or later. If it were me I think I would probably jump that girl's ass in private and ask her exactly what the frick the deal was back then and take what I was going to do about it from there. It could be she was fricking around on her husband or there could be a legit explanation. I think I'd clear that air first and proceed with whatever information I got from that. If her explanation sounds innocently shady I'd probably ask her if it was okay if I talked to her husband about it just to make sure she wasn't screwing around. If this dude is your friend he's probably going to get a little pissy finding out you were screwing his wife, knowingly or not, 3 years into their marriage and you knew all this information and never said anything. I'd respect a guy for explaining the situation and having enough respect to come to me with it. I'd be mad as frick if I found out my buddy did and knew all that and never said a word. Just let me play along like a fucking chump.